You know, when I see the LeBlanc ban, it would make me think that something like a Sylas is coming out. The thing that would... Ooh! The thing that would change it, I was going to say, was the Twisted Fate ban. We're going to get an Irelia coming in. You'd expect this to go into the hands of Breathe, right? This is something we saw him play last year. It was something that he actually had highlight plays on. So for the side of WE, it is not 11.14 yet, but we're already going to get to see some Irelia.
I love this pick. We'll see how it all works out once the final picks are locked in here for LGD. They're going to go with the Sylas, of course, knowing that that one's still available to them. WE opted into that matchup, so they'll either put the Akali or the Irelia into that particular one, as we now see LGD thinking about what they want to go for. They are going to opt out of the Thresh and into the Nautilus and give the option of a Thresh set or a Braum here for WE. I wouldn't mind seeing the Braum, to be perfectly honest. A lot of the side of LGD just want to run into you.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, things like the Braum, the Alistar, just things to dissuade the amount of engage that wants to come out from the side of LGD. I love that Missing is pretty much hovering every option under the sun that is good at countering engage and countering dive. They are going to go back to that Braum Penguin, so you're going to get to see what you want. And yeah, we have, I'd say, two very brawly compositions coming out once again. I love what WE's put together because, I mean, just getting the flavor in this Irelia. This was something that we got to see during LPL finals, if you remember. We saw teams like RNG and EpicSkillshot going back and forth, where RNG was saying, hey, we're going to blind and early pick the Jayce. Nuguri was the one pulling out the Irelia, and now getting to see Breed do it. So WE, once again, all inning on that top half of the map. Feels like mid's going to be a lot slower pace this time around, with both Akali and Sylas just going to be farming up. Akali, once she gets the Oblivion Orb, should be able to find some advantage. And we know bottom lane, just going to be a farm fest when we got Ezreal Braum on one side of the rift. So our eyes, once again, on the top lane.
And this is a fun little composition to see. You look at the last time we saw this Irelia for Breathe in that top side. It was spring 2021. It was against OMG. And then also looking on the other side as well, the only time we've actually seen a competitive game at the top level for Shanks on the Akali was the Nest tournament in 2020, back on 10.19, and he was able to pick up a win on that one as well. So a lot of very unusual styles being adapted from WE, but if they can make it work, if they can make it stick, this is very, very promising for them coming into the later half of the season.
And the thing I'm most curious with is seeing what build Breed goes with on this Irelia, because we've seen so many different things come out from Irelia in solo queue, to where she's able to go with the Gore Drinker. You have a lot of melee champions on the opposite side. You can get the sustain. You can be more of a nuisance in long-term skirmishes. We've seen Irelia's build Divine Sunder. We've seen Triforce. You know, that's a tried and true from back in the day, Stride Breaker. So we're going to keep our eyes on what Breathe does with this champion. There's a lot of skill expression coming out on both sides. We're really embracing this melee-heavy brawler assassin meta. And now I feel like the ball's in LGD's court. Hey, where are you going to find your advantage? How are you going to get ahead? You drafted this Jayce up in topside, which ended up getting counterpicked. It's going to be a volatile matchup. If Jayce dies and falls behind, Breathe will just be able to take over. But looking at the opposite side of the map, you have Kramer and Mark. Kramer on the Varus. You will always have a strong lane to play around, but it feels like then you're opening up WE to have the strong side of the map that they want.
Wait and see how it all goes. A lot of if, buts, and maybes as we come into Game 2. WE with a one-game advantage after absolutely smashing LGD in the first, and LGD now looking for a return and get themselves back into this series. Fearness is going to put himself into this bush. Wasn't warded this time around. You can see the dragon just flying off in the background there. It's actually a really cool little thing if you ever notice. On the top lane, you can see the dragon flying in the background before he lands onto Dragon Pit, which is quite cute, in case you never knew that. Little observer tricks I learned from the LEC.
Yep, you were an observer, Penguin. It's you know, strange. Me coming from LMS, you coming from LEC, and us ending up here in the weirdest, most aggressive, bloodthirsty region, and we already got action, but I got excited too quickly. Penguin, back to you.
This is why I'm the play-by-play and you're the color. This is the difference between the two. You get too excited. You need to know when it's going to be going down. Very difficult, I imagine, for the level 1s of either of these sides to really make anything stick. And both junglers pretty good at an early, kind of getting that early clear. So we'll see now with WE. And actually, level 2s have been hit, but Mark's in a little bit of trouble. He will get the concussive blows down. Level 2 has been hit. There's a nice Winter's Bite, and that's a bad trade for Mark. Missing that dredge line really hurt him.
I mean, I don't know if it would actually turn out too differently. WE's bottom lane hit level 2 immediately after LGD's did, so, you know, I like to make the point that we're probably not going to see too much come out from this, right? Because it is Braum against Nautilus at the end of the day. It feels like a lot of times Braum will be able to come out ahead in trades. Market attacking with his passive. Missing an attack with his passive, then Elk should always be in a safe place with his E to just be able to output more damage onto Mark than I feel like Kramer and Mark can put onto Missing. So for LGD, I feel like it's a lot about just getting prio, maybe trying to get some deep vision in the enemy jungle, and then playing out that way. Maybe having Mark impact the map more, right? Because you are an engaged support, you're able to move and make these proactive plays compared to Missing, who it's going to be a lot more dependent about linking up with Beishang.
Well, Beishang is towards this top side. Shanks has found himself a little bit of pressure in the mid lane, to be expected, as top lane do know exactly what's going on. LGD well aware of where the big old bear is, as they walked over a ward in that top side. So just going to be a scuttle crab trade, as we can now see this trade in the mid lane, I should say. Xiye going toe-to-toe with Shanks. If that shadow wasn't there, that's going to be a dead Sylas. So good for the jungler of LGD to get himself into position to cover his mid lane.
Yeah, and Shadow gonna make his way down to at least guarantee himself the bottom side scuttle. This is what you would expect. It is where his priority is, right? We were wondering what Shadow would look to do if he was gonna cover top side. Ended up doing a bit of both. Covered his top lane, makes his way down towards bot, is still gonna be able to play off that prio that Varus and Nautilus are giving him. And so far, we're just having a pretty smooth laning phase coming out once again. You know, people might be looking at this and be like, whoa, Shanks is in trouble. What's Shanks doing? But let's remember, Xiye's TP was already forced out. Shanks still has his, so going to be looking for that first recall, buy some items, and be able to get back to this lane. No problem. And there's that Oblivion Orb that we hit on, because this was a matchup back in the day where people really favored the Sylas, but I feel like with just small tweaks to Akali, and then especially changes to itemization, like things like Zanya's being made cheaper, things like Oblivion Orb especially being made 800 gold, you've seen a lot of Sylas matchups flip to where it is playable, if not even winning for the other side, for things like Akali, LeBlanc, and other champions coming out.
It did feel like it was and now in line, the Oblivion Orb specifically, now in line with a lot of other Grievous Wounds or early Grievous Wounds items. Of course, you got the Bramble Vest and the Executioner's Calling, so a lot of that was the issue, I suppose, with mages being able to not really kind of take up any anti-heal that cheaply. So nice to see it come in, and like you said, does give a much more favorable matchup now to the Akali into the Sylas, as we can see. Just them skirmishing now, and I actually quite like the pathing you see now with Beishang. Yes, he's being spotted out on wards, but he's always looking around to see, can I make something work? Can I find an opportunity to blow open this game? And really might be able to see if he can get it. There's going to be the Vanguard's Edge put out straight away. The Flawless Duet is not available. They are going to have to back themselves away. Shadow here and Beishang, both junglers just pulling away their children off the playground and saying, hey, no fighting. Back to playing.
Oh. Fearness trying to find the damage, but Breathe so far doing a nice job. I mean, we know with the damage, especially coming out from his passive, having that stun on his Flawless Duet, as Beishang gets engaged on. I don't think they have any way following up with how far and I'd say even low on resources that Fearness is. Shank's even going to be able to hover over right now, and Fearness just going to fall further behind. WE going to zone him off the wave. Doesn't matter if they kill him or not. If he falls 20, 30 assists behind, it's going to be a level advantage, more base stats, more items on to Breathe, and that kill pressure will be there eventually.
They have no wards either, so they can't really figure out where everyone is. Beishang's still level 5, so does not have the Stormbringer, but with the addition of Xiye to this top side, they are going to be able to get Fearness back into this lane, but this is exactly what WE do. They just put resources into Breathe and Beishang, and Shanks is just such a good facilitator for that. He doesn't really care about his mid lane. He doesn't care about getting advantages. He knows that his win condition, if he wants to win as a team, is to just push forward and get himself to priority in the top side.
And I even feel like WE's comp does better the later the game goes. You have this Braum, which counters a lot of what LGD want to do. You're going to be able to, again, tag your passive, dissuade members with your ultimate, like Mark, like Shadow, make it hard for Xiye to get on top of Elk, who's on the Ezreal, so it's already hard for him. We have two champions that scale incredibly well in the Akali and the Irelia. They're going to have a really good time at controlling sides later on to be able to find these flanking opportunities and these windows to get onto an immobile champion like Varus. So the fact that WE are already doing a great job of controlling the early laning phase and they can rely on that scaling is, Engage comes out.
Missing, he flashes away, but he's not going to be able to get away quick enough. That's going to be Shadow with first blood in that bot side. Nicely done there by LGD.
Yeah, nice flash coming out from Shadow to follow up and guarantee that kill. They even got the heal coming out from Elk. And see, Penguin, this is why I get excited early on, because sometimes things like that happen where it happens extremely fast and Missing is dead before we even know it. And Shadow going to pivot back towards that bottom lane, Penguin. It's what we expected, right? He tried to cover for Fearness. He wanted to match W in what they were doing, but at the end of the day, has to play through where he has prio and kill pressure.
Well, the kill pressure is going to be coming in for WE on this top side or mid lane. This is actually got to give good props to Shanks. Has had a very good start to this game. Missing and Mark to find each other. The hook does land as Mark has got some concussive blows onto him. But with the stand behind me, gets in front of Beishang. But the Rift Out has been started. Beishang is level 6 and has his ult available to him. I do not know if LGD want to fight this right now, as they don't really have prio in top or mid.
And the big problem is, right, we've seen LGD expend so much. No ult on Shadow, no ult on Xiye, no ult on Kramer. Shadow doesn't have flash. Like, there's so many tools that aren't available to you where WE have pretty much everything. Sure, Missing is down some summoners, but you have everything else available to you. They have the prios that you were talking about in the solo lanes. So for LGD, you want to see them start making their way onto the map and trying to find some of that pressure. That's what Shadow's doing right now. Typically, we see, right, is if one team can walk the river and get straight on the objective, the other team will typically walk to a lane, try and find a kill that way, and get pressure to walk into river from that side. Shadow didn't do that to contest the objective, but hoping to find a play now. But he's on a ward. It is not going to happen.
Knows
Penguin.
it now. Knows it now. Felt that there was a little bit too cautious here from Breed, who is 30 CS ahead, or just about that. He is really opening up this gap down in this top side, rushing towards that Blade of the Ruined King. Pretty damn standard as an Irelia, but see what kind of full item mythic he goes for once he's able to finish off that pick.
Yeah, it does look like he's potentially just going to go towards the Blade of the Ruined King first, something that, you know, is very typical ever since it got that buff for melee champions. So Breathe right now looks like he's starting to build up this wave. Fearness already 30 CS behind. This matchup isn't going to get any easier, and LGD know that, so they're bringing Shadow and Mark up. They do have some control wards down. We're going to see if they are going to be able to find a play available to them, because Beishang is nowhere near.
Nowhere near, but there's a good flawless duet, but they have enough CC to lock him down. Shutdown goes over to Mark. Probably not the person you really wanted to get it, but a kill is a kill is a kill.
And the thing is, you relieve some pressure off of Fearness, right? He's able to push out this wave. He's not getting zoned off. Is not in fear for his own life right now. Maybe even potentially going to be able to get a turret plate. Breathe will have teleport up, so I think Fearness will have to be a bit careful. But we're seeing the consequences for LGD's actions, right? You have to allocate resources towards the top side because your top laner is falling so far behind. Now you're going to lose out on the bottom lane. Kramer getting zoned off, and Elk also getting some turret plating for himself. So Elk definitely having a lot different of an experience than he had in game 1.
And I love this from WE. It's the you know, your turn, my turn philosophy, if you will, that we have seen from so many different top teams, of that if you give up one thing, yes, it sucks that you lost a kill from, or you gave up a kill onto your top laner, but you're making an equal and opposite reaction, if not stronger reaction, on the other side of the map, using your numbers advantage. They get plates, they get the dragon, they honestly get a lot more than LGD, and I feel like, yes, you have to give up a lot of you have to give something to Fearness so he can have some kind of advantage or some kind of foothold in this game, but it doesn't really change the state of it for him against Breed.
And right, it's just the way that tempo and League works. It's one of the reasons why you'll hear people typically talk about windows, because when I make a play, right, I'm gonna have to be I'm going to be looking for resets after that play. It's going to give the enemy team a window to look for plays. They're going to have tempo. They're going to have their own ability to trade on the opposite side of the map. And WE so far being a good team at doing it. That's what we saw LGD struggle at doing in Game 1. There were other problems, but we highlighted one of the situations where they weren't, as Breathe does get engaged on.
Oh, the flash forward from the wind into lightning, but the Vanguard's Edge jump back straight on top of this. They're going to jump onto the Jayce and kill him dead. Nothing he can do, and now Shadow trying to see if he can be a jumpy boy, but the jumpy boys are all on top of you, Shadow. They will donate that to the Shanks Akali Fund, and that is WE with a fantastic reaction to Xiye, to Xin Zhao in the top side.
Yeah, WE doing a nice job, and once again, LGD not in a position to answer anywhere else. Their bottom lane looked like they were coming off of a reset, and they're actually also going to lose bot lane tower to Elkin missing. So Xiye not able to move down. Xiye doesn't have any mana for himself either. And for WE, it's only about a 2k gold lead, just slightly under. But WE been the team in full control of the map the whole time, and now for WS, I feel like you're still just pushing this in. You should be able to guarantee this as Elkin missing right now, and then we're going to start getting to the points where lane allocations are going to change. The 1-3-1s are going to start being able to come out. Elkin missing are going to be able to move into that mid lane, and that's what these are going to be extremely difficult for the side of LGD.
They're already pretty damn difficult, if I do say so myself. As you can see now, there's the auto attacks coming in. They're going to be able to take out the finality of that turret. Elk does have to tank up quite a bit. Maybe thought he had a little bit more, but of course, more plates that go down, the more armor it gets for the last few of them. So WE taking that bot side turret, getting full plate gold off of that, and they've got 3 plates in top side. I think they've got 1 or 2 plates in mid as well. But let's have a look at the replay here as Beishang just bides his time and now knows there's no escape for Shadow or Fearness.
Yeah, Shadow trying to flash into the WE, isn't able to do it. Breathe flashing away from it, and then at this point it's a 2v1, right? The ult came out from Shadow, but roam up from Shanks to secure that kill. And for WE, still just playing around that top side synergy. And I feel like this is one of the areas where we've seen Shanks work out a lot better than Mole, which is going to be kind of strange to say, is the fact that Shanks, I feel like, is a lot more tempered and doesn't roam as much as we saw Mole doing in the early weeks, and it not working out for WE, of them actually over-aggressing and typically over-committing to plays and giving up too much, to where Shanks typically a lot more set in just sitting in mid, farming up, and then finding these more opportune times to link up with someone like Beishang or Breathe is up. Yeah, Beishang securing that blue buff for himself. Man, LGD just can't catch a break.
No, miss smite there from Shadow means that the blue buff goes down to about 10 HP and then it dies straight off it from the smite of Beishang. And now WE, you can see with the pressure they have in that bot side, they can just chuck down the Irelia, Whiplay of the Ruin King in hand, TP in back pocket, and know that they are going to be totally safe. And if anyone tries to go down like this to try and, you know, deal with it, to try and put down a numbers advantage for LGD, WE will strike with the Rift Herald, get multiple towers in multiple lanes.
The problem is, it doesn't matter, right? Because since you can't commit to that top side, I feel like you need to try and get set up bot lane, which is what LG are doing.
Oh, they're going to jump in. There's the CC lock. Does not have flash. Will try and trade himself out of this, but with the ignite from Mark, very difficult to sustain out of that one there, as we now see the Rift Herald being spawned up into this top side. Should not use its charge. Actually, they are going to use it straight away just to get the push going. Beishang now back onto the minion wave, and they're going to look for 2 turrets off this trade. So again, WE, yes, they lose Breathe in the bot side to that gank, but they now know they have numbers advantages, and they get 2 towers off of it.
Yeah, for LGD, though, I really don't think there was a better choice available. They could have tried to hover topside, but WE can still force. They would still get 1 turret for nothing. So at the end of the day, you're either going to lose 2 turrets for 1 in my mind, or 1 for 0. So WE were always going to come out in a 1 turret surplus. I feel like the hard thing for LGD, again, is that I don't necessarily think it gets easier for them as the game goes on. If they were able to find an early advantage, then I feel like their mid to late game is a lot more manageable, because they are able to play off range advantage from both Varus and Jayce, so they get on objective first, they can try and poke off. They do a better job at controlling mid wave and making it harder for WE's composition to walk into a lot of small spaces or where they don't have vision. But LGD not going to be able to do that this time around, not going to have those advantages that really come with having that extra range over WE, and WE just going to do such a great job of controlling side lanes in these elongated lanes with Irelia and Akali.
And you got the Ezreal Braum in the mid lane, the Akali up to the top side. No TP just yet onto Shanks. Good vision control here from LGD, but it looks like they're trying to bait something and haven't started the dragon just yet. And while they're waiting for someone to walk into their trap, it will just be a slow ticker till Shanks has his TP. He should have it in the next 10 seconds, and now LGD will start up the Drake. And I don't think WE really care, to be perfectly honest. I don't think they care about this objective right now because they know that they're just not really in a position to contest it.
And they also know that LGD's really only shot back into the game right now is through 5v5. So it is where LGD's composition is actually pretty respectable. They have a front line coming in, and Nautilus, even Zhao, really does fulfill that area to where for WE, they know they're the ones that have pressure in side lanes. They know irelia especially, right? You'd rather be in the 1v1. You'd rather be in a small skirmish like a 2v2 rather than a full-on 5v5. They gave themselves the buffer by picking up the first Drake, so they're going to go back to that same trade you were hitting on in game one of, hey, LGD, you can have power for later on. WE are going to be picking up immediate power and winning out in the gold trade.
Now the target for WE is going to be that mid lane tier 1. They've yet to crack that one open, and if they are able to get it, that would open the map so much more significantly for WE to make aggressive plays into the LGD jungle. As you can see, a lot of forward vision here on the bot side of the river for Team LGD, and WE keep pushing in now, and this is where it gets a little scary. Where's the Akali? They now know exactly where she is. She's off to the side. Now they don't know. In, out, moving back in and forward, trying to just keep putting down this poke damage onto this tier 1.
But now for WE, just rinse and repeat, right? Send Akali and Irelia back to sides, push those out, send Beishang into the top side jungle once Shanks is able to get that push off. And then once you push the lanes out far enough, rotate back towards mid, start the siege up once again until you eventually take that turret. So for WE, it is going to be rinse and repeat. For LGD, they're going to be the ones who I feel like are more threatened to find a way to answer what WE are doing. Where can they find the pick? How can they force the fight? Those are all the questions that LGD need to answer. Yeah, nice play coming out from Fearness. Hey, we saw it happen on top side with Beishang. Now Fearness getting an answer for himself with a bit of a buff steal. Though I guess you're stealing away your team's own buff, so it's...
You're stopping the steal. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're just denying it. As we see, Elk went off and picked himself up a blue buff, so he's going to be able to sustain forever with his mana bar as he starts stacking up that tier towards that 360 mark. And this is where the game stays a little bit of a drop in play. Neither side really wants to take a full 5v5, especially not on their own terms, and we'll probably just wait until about another 3 minutes time when that dragon spawns.
I mean, that's what LGD are going to be waiting for. For WE, I don't even think you necessarily need to contest it, even at that point. If WE can keep up having good vision on the bottom side of the map, and you can set up for a flank angle coming in for someone like Shanks, I think that's when you opt into it. But if LGD are just going to keep playing far back in their long lanes, waiting to group up as 5 through mid, then that's when Mark is a Nautilus. So once again, I am getting too excited, Penguin, but point is, WE have all the cards, WE have all the options. They're just going to keep trying to play through sides. Looks like they just want to try and force down this mid lane turret. Is Mark.
Ooh, if that blast code wasn't there, that could have been a little bit more dodgy.
Edge.
He is living on the edge, but living on the edge of mid lane does mean that you're not able to defend it, and that's tier 1 going down in favor of WE. They have themselves a 2,000 gold lead, or just above it at the moment, 21 minutes into the game, and now exactly what you said, they can go back to the side lanes. Akali and Irelia, they just separate, and this 3-man squad in the mid lane of Beishang, Elk, and Missing are totally safe. Very difficult to get on top of these champions on their own right, but when you combine them together, it might even be detrimental if you try to go for it too hard.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the silver lining for LGD is that they clearly understand that this is what WE are going to do. They've been respecting it. They haven't been overextending in side lanes. They haven't been giving those windows. They have been waiting to show on the map when they are grouped up as a unit. So WE are going to have to fight them at some point. Still, WE's composition, no slouches in fights whatsoever, especially when we have item advantages coming out, right? Beishang already having that Sonya's Hourglass being an item up over Shadow. I think we had Shanks about half an item up over Xiye as well. We know Breathe incredibly strong, so whole top side of the map having some advantages coming out that they can rely on in fights. For W, they also have great vision control. You look at the minimap right now, really good ward line going straight down the center, being just slightly into LGD spot side jungle with Dragon coming up in 40 seconds. So For Breathe, I would have liked if Breathe can push out one more wave bot side before Dragon, still have that point of pressure in bot to where they can enter from, and then have 2 ways that they can enter into River depending on where LGD come from to try and give that angle for Breathe to be able to have a really nice flank in the fight.
Yeah, important to note, there is still summoners pretty much across the board. Everyone has everything available to them. You're as strong as you can be right now, and this could be a pivotal fight for the side of LGD. You win it, you get yourself back into the game, you can give yourself an opportunity and a chance to win this one and send us to game 3. If WE win it, you fall further and further down that ditch and really don't give yourself any way of coming back into it, or at least very little ways of coming back, as the rest of WE scale nicely into the late game. But it looks like LGD, they don't even want to fight it. They just don't feel comfortable with the vision control that WE have and the vision control that LGD lack.
That's the big thing, right? We look at which lanes are being pressured. We did see Breathe ending up opting into pushing in that bot lane, so no way for LGD to get into terrain from there. They have vision in the enemy jungle. They have push in mid. LGD just having no way to enter that space, and W doing a good job once again of just pivot off their pressure in mid, get vision in the bottom side jungle, get a little bit of siege down, and then just default back to what you were doing. We see Shanks heading up back towards that top side. Probably a bunch of standing gold in the members' pockets, going to be able to pick up more items. And then, once again, we're going to be looking at LGD of where they can find a pick. They haven't wanted to look towards sides for reasons like you've said. I feel like going for Shanks would be a bit of a bait. We saw how much time Akali is able to buy in the last game. This time around, Shanks, does have flash on like Breathe in game 1. So looking towards Breathe might be your only option, but missing. Why are you solo?
He was spotted, and they're going to be able to know exactly where he is. I have no idea why he's still there, but missing. Dudes end up falling. We'll have a look at the replay, maybe. I think he thought he was not seen, and then tried to flash into the bush to make sure he could get the recall off, but
why is he
unsure.
There?
I don't know. I don't know. Wanted to make the game a little fairer?
I was going to say, right, like we're talking about Irelia, we're talking about Akali, we're focused on these prime carries, and then, we panned to Braum bot side, maybe not sure if he was going for a recall earlier and it got canceled?
Oh, they spotted him out. They knew where he was, and then he got spotted on the minions, so they knew exactly where to go, they knew exactly how to find him. And he tries to sneak himself into this ward. Yep, they do know, though, that if you're not at the back of this, you're probably in that bush. And they just caught him out straight up, was just recalling in a very greedy position.
We still didn't get to see what he was doing before that, but I assume he was just recalling, right? You really have no reason why you should be getting vision in bottom side jungle right after you made a play in bottom side. No dragons up, barons up, so gonna assume he was just recalling. Got a bit unlucky with that scrying ward coming out from one of the members of LGD, and now LGD going to go back towards just trying to play around Xiye on the sides. We hit on how playing around, looking for picks on Shanks isn't really ideal, but Beishang has been hovering around Breathe pretty much consistently, so for LGD, if they want to find a pick onto the Irelia, they're going to have to overload that side of the map and open up another pressure point for WE to punish, which we've seen WE doing a great job that when LGD are on one side of the map, they're always ready to make the trade play on the opposite side. So for LGD, I don't really think you have another answer. I feel like at some point you just need to commit to trying to find a pick on this Irelia, give yourself some breathing room, and then hopefully get some vision down for, if a dragon's up, Dragon, look to make that play, try to force out the 5v5, because I don't see any other way that LGD are able to open up the map.
And the big thing to notice is that despite LGD having 4 kills to 2, really are doing well to find out some of these little picks, because Shanks and Breathe are forcing multiple members to come to their lane to just catch a wave. You can see in the CS differences, it's 25 in top lane, it's 25 in jungle, it's 25 in mid lane, it's about 25 in ADC as well. So these little numbers, that's 100 CS that you are ahead of your opponents right across the board, and that means that you're just falling further behind in XP, in gold, and just straight up resources. So it's really just pulling LGD thin. And yes, they're finding 1 or 2 small moments where WE are overextended or missing, just randomly getting caught, but it doesn't really make a difference.
No, it doesn't. And yeah, you're right. WE as a collective, flame horizoning. LGD is Penguin just
the collective flame horizon.
The collective flame horizon. Those quick mats coming out from Penguin, but for WE, it's been a really controlled game, and it seems like they're just going to do it once again, right? Wait the 50 seconds for Dragon to come up. Resets are going to be coming out right now in preparation for that. Looks like LGD think a potential Baron could be going on. You see a bunch of question mark pings coming out over the Baron, but WE aren't that bold. WE aren't doing that. They don't actually have the fastest Baron to look for a play like that, even if LGD think maybe it's possible, but maybe just assuming that they are on the top quadrant of River. As LGD going to ignore mid-prio, knowing they can't contest over that, walking straight into River to get their vision down.
Ooh, we're going to see a little bit of an engage there. It's just both supports going at each other. Mark gets locked up, though, forced to flash away already in this fight. You can see Dragon now spawning for another 10 seconds. Two shots broad goes well wide, and now Mark's in a little bit of trouble. He has no flash and no way out, but they have to respect that there is a lot of LGD members either from the back of the pit or to the front of it. There's a hook down, but Mark gets deleted. The stolen Vanguard's Edge is not really used to engage, and now WE in a 4v5. Their health bars aren't looking exceptional right now, but they've got a lot of ultimates to work with. Now, Dragon down to 3,000 HP. You can see their Shadow just hovering around, seeing if he can get on top of it, but he cannot. He goes in, pops the ultimate to try and keep himself alive. There's the Braum on the back end of the fight to just disengage and make sure that Xin Zhao falls. Xiye comes out of gold to just go back to bronze, and now we can see everyone else dying in LGD. They're just going to be falling one by one by one, and WE get themselves sole point, a clean ace, and setting straight to Baron.
And it's an absolute murder, Penguin. I love the way WE played off that at the beginning, though, right? The way they played around Mark, they didn't fall for the bait. They said, hey, they're going to have to come into us at some point. They wait for it. They find the opening pick. And WE is looking clean. Honestly, might be the cleanest series we've seen from WE in quite a while. And this is definitely going to be a Baron for them. Breathe also going to get himself a mid-turret. Oh, is this?
Oh, no, he's
wow.
not. No! What a play by Mark. Mark just, he straight up CC locked him, put down the Ignite, and basically said, you don't leave. That's how this one works. And sad little moment there. It will still fall, but great move there by Mark to bring himself back. But let's have a look at how this fight goes.
Mark gets himself a Maestro award as yeah, we're gonna come into this after Mark is already dead after that total Chad play. We're gonna see that Shadow has to go for the steal. WE played this so patiently, right? WE do have tools to where maybe they can send a Akali in first or try and simplify that way, but they know we have the Braum, we have the Ezreal, we want them to come into us. They pull the objective, they make them come out, and they just set up a superior angle for them to be able to find the fight. But you know, what's the real victory, Penguin? The gold lead, the Dragons, the Baron, or being a Nautilus who solo killed a 15% HP irelia?
I know. Honestly, I take that. If you're Mark, you take them. You take those small little W's. And WE coming out of this are Baron buffed up. They've got 3 minutes till the Infernal Soul. They have a 8,000 gold lead or just a little bit underneath it. And it's just... I gotta point out, Beishang has yet to die in this series. He's 0-0-5 on this Volibear. He has a Zhonya's. I don't think he's going to die once throughout the 2 games if WE can take the win.
Yeah, that's, you know, a great performance from WE. I think both games, they showed how their compositions want to interact. We saw like the stylistic flair coming from WE in terms of like playing around top side no matter what. We saw their bot lane be very stable. And what I would say is one of the fairly easier LPL bottom lane matchups, so good for them. Not giving any 2v2 kills over, which we've seen them do consistently. Shanks, stable game as well, surprising us being able to pull out the Akali, but I still feel like the biggest and saddest story is just, you know, new day, same me for LGD. Still really only relying on, if Shadow can't just solely take over the game, you just don't have any firepower on the side of LGD. We see they're not the smartest teams in terms of looking for trades, and Shanks.
Oh, goes golden, so still fine. Has a perfect execution, but there is a stolen perfect execution from Xiye. He goes back in with the Abstandum Duck. They're going to try to jump back in on top of him with Shanks and Breed taking this one, but the good accelerated shock blast right on top of him, but no! Well. Breed takes him back at a 1v1, and that's going to be enough to make sure that WE have got themselves a decent fight. We can see the Braum now jumping in. They've got themselves the stacks of the concussive blows as they go, everyone going golden. There's going to be the Volibear jumping on the backside of this fight. Mark and Kramer Kramer. Not really long left in this world. Xiye comes back in with the teleport, but he is on the wrong side of this fight. Shadow now left in no man's land in his own base as he tries to jump back in. Breathe does end up getting jumped on, but gets 100% deleted. Unbelievable moves here from WE, and they're going to be able to solidify the 2-0. LGD never stood a chance.
No, WE showing up in this series. Beishang, great performance, and you know, WE's top side, I feel like really having a phenomenal day between them all. And as a WE fan, when we highlighted the schedule, when we highlighted where they're at in the standings, how many teams they're tied with, this was the sort of win you needed.
Really, really was. Fantastic game from Beishang in particular. Fantastic series. 0 deaths across 2 games. His KDA is going to go through the absolute roof after these 2 games. But LGD, they were uninspiring. They didn't really have an answer that was adequate enough to deal with what WE were putting out in front of them, to what WE were pushing into this game and this series. And for LGD, this is a really big loss to take because they've only got about a handful of games left to play in this season, and they're already at 6 and 7. This is very, very dire for them.
Yeah, LGD actually only have 3 series left, which is not only sad for LGD, but also just incredibly crazy how far we've gotten in LPL. So they don't have too much wiggle room. They're still going to be sitting at 11th because they have a win over RNG in terms of, you know, RNG haven't played another series yet to where they can pick up a win. So sitting at 6 compared to RNG are only at 5, but you're sitting at 6 and 7 compared to RNG who are at 5 and 5. OMG's above you at 6 and 5. BLG, there's so many teams you're competing with now that it feels rough, right? And we've already hit on it numerous times that once you get to 8 losses is when it really looks pretty doomed, pretty rough. It's not impossible, doesn't mean you're out, but that's typically when it's like, okay, if you then get to 9, it usually is. So for LGD, I mean, you need to change something, but I really don't know what you change. It feels like you just don't have the firing power in terms of your lanes. You don't really have any lanes you're able to play through. There are other issues, right? We've hit on their mid-game issues all throughout the series in terms of when they aren't able to contest, they don't really trade on the opposite side of the map so well, or they don't know when they should be looking towards the opposite side or setting up for that. And they're never in position to be able to get control or get prio because they don't win early games to be able to play through their team fighting. Because it feels like that's the other area where LGD have really shown that they're able to take wins is like, hey, Shadow's shown us in the past. He's an absolute monster in team fights. I feel like that's Xiye's best area of like finding flanks, being able to get in team fights, make a big highlight move to show that you are still a top level mid laner in LPL. But when you aren't able to get the advantage or set up in the early games, how are you ever going to get into a position where you can look for those fights? You're just not.
That's the big thing. I think the thing that I notice so much about LGD is that there's no spark, there's no ignition to set it all off. It feels like when they're ahead and they're able to find it in a, you know, as I like to call it, if you're, you know, using the ignition setup of a car, like if you're going downhill, yeah, it's fine. You're gonna have the momentum of downhill. It's no problem whatsoever. But you're trying to get something uphill, it just feels like they haven't got much to stand on. It doesn't feel like bot lane they've got many answers, or even in top lane it feels like they're swapping between Garvey and Fearness. And don't get me wrong, Fearness had a decent game, as you can see there, did the most damage of the game, but it doesn't make a difference if you're still, you know, if you're making all that damage go down but not picking up anything off the back of it. So for LGD, it really starts to get tough from this point on. They have to pretty much win all 3 of their games if they want to have a chance of coming into playoffs to the top 10 at the end of the split. But for WE, it really has been a nice turnaround from the start of the split. They feel like they're finding their form. Shanks is working out well, and Beishang, our MVP from Game 2, is just really coming back into what we saw and what we expect from him in 2020.
Yeah, Beishang, great series overall. WE, I'm still going to approach with a bit of skepticism, just because I feel like we see, right, 1 week you have a really shaky win over Ultra Prime, you had like a really close, again, somewhat shaky win over LG. You got smashed by JDG, but now you have a really comfortable win over LGD. Like this was a smacking. So for WE, I'm cautiously optimistic. I mean, they look like a team that is going to get into playoffs, right? But the question is, like, how far can they go? This is definitely the most comfortable they've looked in a match and with Shanks, but at the same time, there wasn't much of a fight put up. They do have to play against EDG next, So maybe we get to see how comfortable and how strong this roster really is right now before having, you know, a bit of an easier schedule against Rogue Warriors and IG, and then ending hard on RNG and Top Esports. So for WE, it's going to be a bit of a turbulent one for them. Also, Penguin, very strange that we finish so early. We actually might have a really long break before the next series.
There's
because
a lot
remember,
of time.
we're at 2 different stadiums, Hangzhou, and then we are moving to Shanghai next. So, yeah.
The power of the internet to be able to transport us and you to the other cities of China to be able to watch all of the LPL. But for the moment, that is going to be us sending it to a break. And when we return, you got loads of time. Go to the bathroom, get yourself a drink, some snacks, get yourself ready. We will be bringing you BLG versus JD.